Hey, welcome back to the This Old Baker podcast. I'm Kim, and I want to start today by telling you something embarrassing. Yesterday, I threw away leftovers. Good ones. A container of soup that had been sitting in the refrigerator just long enough that I didn't feel great about eating it. A half pan of something I'd made earlier in the week that nobody touched after the first night. Just gone. Into the trash. And I'm the person who writes about not wasting food. I teach people how to stretch ingredients, how to use what they have, how to cook from the pantry. And I threw away leftovers. Here's the thing, though. It wasn't really a waste problem. It was a batch size problem. I made too much. I always make too much. Most of us do because every recipe we grew up with feeds 6 to 8 people. And there are 2 of us at the table, or 1. Or some days, just me. Today I want to talk about small batch cooking. What it actually means, why it saves more money than you'd think, and how to stop making a vat of something and then spending the rest of the week trying to feel excited about eating it again. We talk about leftovers like they're automatically a good thing. Cook once, eat twice, meal prep, get ahead of the week. And sometimes that's true. A big pot of chili that you genuinely want to eat for 3 days, that's a win. A double batch of cookies you freeze for later. Absolutely. But here's the math nobody talks about. If you make 8 servings of something and only eat 4 of them before the rest goes bad, you didn't save money. You spent money on 8 servings and got value from 4. That's a 50% return on your grocery dollar. Compare that to making 4 servings intentionally, eating all 4 of them, and moving on. You got 100% of your money's worth. The leftover math only works if you actually eat the leftovers. And for a lot of households, especially smaller households with picky eaters, households where people get tired of the same thing after 2 days. That's not always what happens. I'm not saying never make a big batch. I'm saying be honest with yourself about whether your household will actually eat it. Because throwing away half a pot of soup isn't frugal cooking. It's expensive cooking with extra steps. Here's who small batch cooking is actually for, and I want you to hear your household in this list. Empty nesters, who spent 20 years cooking for 4 and haven't quite adjusted to it being just 2. The recipes are still the same size they always were. The refrigerator is full and nothing gets finished. Single people who genuinely want to cook from scratch but feel defeated every time a recipe makes 8 servings, and they live alone. You do not have to eat pasta for 4 days. You don't. Small batch cooking means you can make something fresh tonight and something different tomorrow. Couples who are tired of the same thing, you make a pot of something Sunday, you eat it Monday, you eat it Tuesday. By Wednesday, somebody is quietly hoping for pizza, and neither of you says anything. Anyone dealing with food waste guilt. If you open the refrigerator and feel vaguely bad about what's in there, that's not a character flaw. It's a batch size problem. Small batch cooking is not a compromise. It's not the sad little portion you make when you can't be bothered to cook a real meal. It's intentional. It's cooking exactly as much as you'll eat, which means it's actually more efficient than cooking more. I want to give you explicit permission to do something that feels wrong at first. You are allowed to cut a recipe in half. You are allowed to cut it to a quarter. You are allowed to make 4 cookies instead of 4 dozen. You are allowed to make 1 portion of soup in a small pot and eat it all yourself and not feel like you underfed anyone. The recipe is not a mandate. The recipe is a suggestion that was written for a household size that may not be your household size. Nobody is grading you on whether you made all 8 servings. My single chocolate chip cookie recipe on the site makes exactly 1 cookie. 1 large, gorgeous bakery-style cookie. It takes 8 minutes. You don't have to make a whole batch, freeze the dough, portion it out, none of it. You want a cookie, you make a cookie. That's the whole philosophy. You want soup, you make soup for two. You want a small pan of brownies, you make a small pan of brownies. You don't owe anyone a full batch. Here's how small batch cooking actually works in practice, because it's not just about cutting recipes in half. First, invest in the right pan sizes: a 6-inch cake pan, a small loaf pan, a 1-quart saucepan, a small cast iron skillet. Most of us have the large versions of everything and nothing small. When the only pan you have makes 8 muffins, you make 8 muffins. When you have a 6-cup muffin tin, you make 6 muffins. Second, learn which recipes scale and which ones don't. Soups and stews scale down beautifully. The only adjustment is reducing the liquid proportionally and watching the cook time. Baked goods are trickier because the chemistry changes with the volume. Cookies are easy. Cakes less so. Breads can be finicky. Third, use your pantry mixes. This is where having dry mixes in jars actually shines for small batch cooking. My muffin pantry mix makes whatever size batch you need. Scoop out how much mix you need for 6 muffins. Add the wet ingredients. Done. You're not committed to 24 muffins because you opened a bag of flour. You're committed to exactly what you want. Fourth, shop smaller. This sounds obvious, but it's the one people resist most. 1 chicken breast instead of a package of 4. A small can of beans instead of a large. Half a pound of ground meat instead of a pound. Yes, it sometimes costs slightly more per ounce. You will spend less money overall because you will not throw half of it away. And fifth, give yourself a 3-day rule. When you make something, ask yourself honestly, will I eat this within 3 days? If the answer is maybe, make less. If the answer is yes, make what you want. If the answer is I'll freeze it, make sure you actually freeze it immediately, not after it's been in the refrigerator for 4 days. One of the things I've been most proud of this year on the blog is the small batch crockpot soup series. Every single soup in that series makes 2 to 3 servings. Not 8, not 6, 2 to 3. Because a lot of people want crockpot soup, but they don't want to eat the same soup for a week, and they don't have the freezer space to store 7 containers of chicken noodle. The small batch crockpot soups cook in a 3-quart crockpot instead of a 6-quart. They're done in 4 to 6 hours instead of 8. And they produce exactly enough for dinner tonight and possibly lunch tomorrow. That's it. That's the whole thing. Dinner tonight, maybe lunch tomorrow. And then you make something different. No guilt, no waste, no 3rd container of soup nobody wants to open. All of those are linked in the show notes. I threw away leftovers yesterday, and honestly, instead of feeling guilty about it, what I felt was clarity. I should have made less. That's the whole lesson. Not cook better, not waste less, not be more disciplined about eating leftovers. Just make less in the first place. Small batch cooking is not a consolation prize for people who can't commit to a full recipe. It's the smarter approach for households where the full recipe doesn't actually fit the number of people sitting at the table. You don't have to make 8 servings just because the recipe does. Start with what you'll actually eat. Make that. Enjoy all of it. The small batch crockpot soup series, the single cookie recipe, and everything else I mentioned today is at thisoldbaker.com and linked in the show notes. Come find me on Facebook and Instagram at thisoldbaker. I want to hear if you're a small batch household or a big batch household and whether leftovers are your friend or your enemy. Thanks for being here. Go make exactly as much as you need. Find me at thisoldbaker.com and on Facebook and Instagram at thisoldbaker. I'll see you next week.